I would suggest, by the way, just slightly though, conversely, of course, if One Nation's currently sitting, at 7%, if they ended up with a preference mix that gets closer back to 2019 than 2022, then that will help the LNP in some areas, not all areas. But again, I suppose that's their argument, that if we can get the primary vote to 40 plus all of this game. But let's get back to the...
We are yet to see whether the money will flow in the same way for the Teals as it did previously, because already the person who gave them $500 million has said no more, because she's Jewish.
Ah, yes.
And not interested. So there's a hole for starters.
$500 million, but
we also I remarkably heard McKellar referred to as an inner city seat. Really?
Yeah.
I don't think so. And I would remind everyone who likes to look at the figures from the no vote, that it was virtually 50-50.
Yeah.
And that was with no support from the Liberal Party at all, just committed people in the electorate who said, we're going to vote no.
So, okay, so Stephen, I want to just ask this one more and then we'll move on, right? Which is, we can see where Albo's going to try to fight it. On again, the assumption that horses bolted, just like boats for the left, climate change for the right, has to be solved, deal with, all the rest. Bronwyn's shaking her head, which is why I asked this question. Do we have to be careful about what we assume is conventional political wisdom about the financial costs of things when the financial mix of voters in 24 and 25 is very different than it was in 22?
Correct.
Well, look, I think that's a absolute fair point, and what we know right now today is the most potent issue across the entire country, regional, inner north, inner south, wherever you want to talk about, is cost of living. So Peter Dutton's only path forward here is to link further rises in energy prices purely to the government's policies. Now, the problem he's got consistently is that the state Liberal parties don't support him on this.
But they don't matter.
Very close and dear friend of Bronwyn.
Matt Keane doesn't matter a row of beans.
Close and dear friend. The state Liberals closed coal mines. Federal, state Labor government keeping the coal-fired power station going longer. Okay? So the problem is that the state Liberals continue to have an entirely different position to Peter Dutton. And it's going to be hard for him to try and blame these things entirely on Labor, because his own state, former now, as Bronwyn correctly says, state governments, contributed to the price increases because they closed down. Just like Daniel Andrews closed down too quickly a coal-fired power station that was needed in Victoria, Matt Keane did the same. So it's a more complex issue today than it was 5 years ago.
No, Stephen.
Because
in fact,
state Liberal governments closed it down.
I said before the last state election that should Perrottet lose, it will be Matt Keane's fault. And it was. And he is a pariah in the party. Useless and irrelevant. So the important thing, the point that you did make that is right, is that the question of the cost of the transmission lines that are being rolled out, the cost of the ambition of Mr Bowen is going to hurt the Australian people, and it is linked to the cost of living, and that is Labor's policy.
Well, this is
the key issue, and they're wound into one.
Well,